Hi everyone, welcome to developer log number 3. In this developer log, I want to continue talking about the spline tools that I've been working on. So in a previous video, I showed how splines can be used to create paths. For instance, the camera paths, or factories, or guiding an airplane, or a boat, or a train, you name it, and it will follow that path. Now in this video, I want to show you that you can use those splines to create geometry as well. So I've been playing around with ropes and wires a lot, and although the progress in that section is going really well, I want to add physics to those ropes and wires. So I'm not showing you those ropes and wires just yet. Something that does work the way I want it to is the road splines. And that's what I'm going to show you right now. So if we have a look at this map here, then you might recognize it from the Leadwerks 2.3, because in the Leadwerks 2.3, roads were being supported inside the editor. And that is something that we haven't seen a while inside the Leadwerks editor or engine for a while. So I made a couple of new scripts that actually deal with creating nodes. So I set up this part of the terrain and I altered it just a little bit so that I can showcase how the road system works. And the cool thing is that these road nodes, they use the same node system in the background. So it doesn't just create roads, it can also still be used as a camera path. So that's really cool. So you can actually just align a vehicle to this road system, and it will not only create the road, it will actually also be used as a path. So here we are. I have this road object which has the same spline script attached, and I can still set a test follower, for instance a car if I wanted to, and I can do some debugging, and then beneath the road itself I have these nodes again. But instead of a path node, like I've shown in the previous video, we now have a road node. And I have a couple of options in here, which is not final, but it's what I have at the moment. So once again, you can define the amount of segments of the spline, which determines its quality. How do you say that? The curvature is more smooth when this is a higher value. Then you can say per road node what the width of the road is. And if you have a couple of nodes, and then for instance if I switch from node 3 to node 4 and that has a different width, then it will gradually go into that width. It will not just be ending at one width and then the next vertex will be extremely wide. No, it will have this graduate widening curve, but that also depends a little bit on these segments. And of course, now I have these nodes placed on the terrain, but you can imagine that if we have some sort of gap, so like here, then we do not, this is a road node right there, and there's the next one, then I want that terrain to be raised to the level of the road itself. The same thing goes for when a road goes through a mountain, it should cut through that mountain. And we can do that by enabling either carve or raise. And then finally, and this is really cool too, is per node you can set a different texture. Now this is really basic right now. It doesn't do any blending with the terrain just yet. I'll have to play around with that. But the basic texture being applied to the road geometry that's being created, that already works. So let's have a look at that, how this looks. And just to give you a quick idea of how many nodes there are, this is the first node, and I'm going to go to that one, go a little bit upwards towards this, creates a nice little curvature here. Then I go to this terrain, and it's going to go through it right now. Then I have a little bridge here. And bridges are something special that's going to be adjusted later, like for instance that you can specify the bridge model and the bridge pillars, which can then be automatically generated for bridges. So that could be a lovely little extra option. And so this point goes to that point over there, and then it goes into this curve by using all these handlers. Let's see if I can get the right one. There we go. So as of this point, we get a lovely little curve to the next point, and then it actually goes underneath that bridge we have up here from there to there. You know what? Instead of just keep talking here, I'll just run the game. So there's some improvements to be done because it's doing a lot of checking. Now, if you don't do any carving or road or terrain snapping or raising the terrain, then the road will be generated like this. As you can see, it goes beneath the terrain at points, but still it's being created the way we want it to. Oh, that's a really big sphere. That should not be happening. But it looks pretty cool already. And you can imagine that you can create some really cool looking, I've actually set a different terrain texture on these parts. So you can see how that is being used automatically, and it's really cool how that works. So here we have a little bridge. If I would fly underneath it, you'd see that, well, this is just a single-sided terrain, what do you call it, a road node, but that doesn't really matter. These are things that we can fix later on. So let's place with some of these options, like widening the road and also curving or carving the terrain towards the terrain because towards the road, because I do not want this to happen. Okay, like I said, the carving inside the terrain, well, that takes a little hit on the performance. So there are things that I need to do to optimize that. But let's for now just turn that option on for both, for all these road nodes, which means that terrain will be raised and terrain will be lowered or carved when the road goes through the terrain. It would be really cool if we could sort of, when we're inside the game, I could apply we just hit a button and then would actually apply to the terrain map. That would be kind of cool. So here we go. As you can see, the terrain is being raised here, and it's not all perfect at all places just yet. These are things that I have to smooth out, but things are starting to look really cool. As you can see, the textures or the nodes check if there is a previous node, and it will actually snap to those previous vertices. And of course, the current texture isn't really great for the terrain that I'm using, but it's just showcasing that you can simply set a different texture. And here it curves through that terrain. Looks awesome. And here we go over this bridge. Whoops, that should actually not be happening. I should have turned off the carve or the raise option for the bridge. I do not want it to do that. Which is kind of funny because if this road would have been going into the other direction, then first the lower road would have been dealing with the terrain, and then the road up here would be dealing with the terrain, and then this gap that we have now would not be there. So that is these are little things that you would have to play with, but look at how awesome this is. It curves it carves through the terrain, and it creates these higher segments which would require some smoothing at this point. And this entire ledge, that wasn't there before, so we now get this lovely road. You can imagine if you're driving along a coastline, if I would enable some water here, then you could create this awesome effect. You know what, let me do that real quick. Let's go to the route scene. Let's enable the water. Where are we? So this is the path along the coast. I guess that could be a little bit higher. Water height. A little bit higher there. There we go. That should be sufficient. And let's select this node, which is road number 5. Perfect. And I do not want it to. Not want it to raise. Perhaps the carving should be fine. And let's save that again. And let's run it. I'm also doing a lot of system prints. You cannot see that, which is not really helping the performance. Again, these things here, like that the terrain is coming through the terrain, through the road. These are things that I have to take care of, but that will be dealt with later. And look at that. We now have a bridge, which could use some pillars, which are automatically generated if you specify a model that it would create these cool bridge pillars. And then it's creating this coastline road here. I love that. So a lot of extra options are to be expected when dealing with roads. And again, if we could somehow save this road or its performance, the way it's carved, the terrain, if we could save that, that would be cool. I'm sure there's a way to do that. So this is just something that I wanted to show you. And let me just also demonstrate that if I would pick this road and I would just put a little test follower object, then this would still work. So if this was a car, then it would actually just start here and actually follow the spline, because it's using that same spline node in the background. And there it goes. So now it's following the road. It will go all the way to the end. Okay, well that's pretty much it. That's what I wanted to show you guys. In the next video, I do hope to show you how the ropes work, especially with the physics. Imagine the Half-Life 2 kind of physics where you can actually drag a rope like an electric cable around. Or when you create power lines and you have a power line pylon that's falling to the ground, then instead of a model that you have to rotate and just have to fidget around a lot, you can just create these spline points and create a lovely rope between them. But that's something for the next video. Thanks for watching.